All right, thanks for coming, y'all. It's been quite a week. I'm really grateful for the actions of the Administrative Rules Committee yesterday, trying to disprove some of the bad administrative rules that the State Department of Education put forward. We're really going to shift our attention next week to the budget, so we're getting ready for those conversations, and I'm ready to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Could I ask about the administrative rules?
Yeah.
You said you're pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Is that maybe kind of a long time coming? Because I don't think we've seen the Republican caucus in either chamber really block anything that.
So the rules process surprised me this week. I will tell you that at the start of the session, I swore to myself that I would not spend as much time analyzing the rules because we haven't taken action for years. But these were some very dangerous rules, and so we were ready to oppose them, gathering immigration information about students and their parents. Also, the naturalization test for teachers was the other main one on our list because it's insulting to teachers to make them go back and get another test. Those two bills being in the resolution that the chairman put forward was great. There were others we probably would have included, but I think to have those two big ones moving forward means a lot.
Do you worry about maybe when it does hit the Senate floor, do you think there will be enough votes on the other side of the aisle to push that resolution forward?
I've heard strong support from leadership. I know the Pro Tem has said very publicly that he does not support that rule, so I feel like at the very least Senate leadership will be in support of that Senate joint resolution. And certainly Senator Bergstrom has not been known for being an outlier on education issues, so I feel like that's a good sign. Do we have to be vigilant? Yes, because I think that there's always advocacy that could misinterpret what those rules are and would forget that there's a constitutional issue here around kids in our communities deserve to go to schools.
Obviously, the governor's been vetoing a few bills this week. Are there any bills that you're hoping something's done on?
Well, I'll just say first, my bill got vetoed. I had an eviction timeline bill that got vetoed. That's disappointing, and it's something we're going to have to keep working on. That was the only housing-related bill moving. So I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of addressing our challenges around the housing market and how broken it is for people across the state. That's one that we're watching closely. Senate Dems have several sitting there that we feel good about. I know that we're hopeful in the budget negotiations for Senator Hicks has a bill about National Guard career tech benefits. We're feeling very hopeful about that one, but it's not on the governor's desk yet. So, yeah.
Has there been any early discussion on possible veto overrides?
So we did. I did talk to the Pro Tem about it, and he just said we're not talking about that this week. So I'll go back and talk to him soon. But I mean, we're going to have to talk about it. You've seen how divided the Senate is, so I think we got to make sure we're looking at every policy very carefully. And I know for Senate Democrats, that means our votes are a very important part of that count. They have to get to 13 to not override. That's not that many people.
Are you worried that some of these have been vetoed just because the D in front of the name on the offers?
I think that's always a possibility. I mean, I think the bigger issue is, a lot of the bills we're running are to support everyday Oklahomans. And so, for instance, my eviction bill, the people who care the most about that are renters and people who serve the homeless. Those are not big moneyed lobbyists who can come up here and wine and dine folks and get things done. So I think when we look at the issues, I think you'll see who are we representing? Well, is it corporations? Is it big money? Then that's when it becomes an issue. When you know that you don't have anyone that has the governor's cell phone number, your issue is going to have a harder time getting the attention, right? So I think that's what we'll see going forward. I haven't analyzed every bill that's been vetoed yet, but we did have Senator Nice had a bill vetoed yesterday that was about urban agriculture. Here we are, a state that cares about agriculture. We say we want city people to understand ag more, and then the one bill that related to urban agriculture got vetoed, and that was disappointing.
The governor posted
I can see you.
The governor posted a video yesterday about some senators that had signed on to his tax cut initiative. Do you worry that this is part of some of the vetoes? Do you worry that this tax cut is going to go through this year? What are your feelings there?
The tax cut bill we were going to see today, I have concerns about. That was going to really not be a big benefit for working families, for our lower income folks, but it was going to really take a big bite out of services and programs that are available in our state budget. So I was worried about that going through. And yes, I'm worried about making permanent decisions right now without a plan, especially when the federal government funding is so much at risk, because we've seen so many areas, public safety, highways, our schools, and certainly health, that we won't know about that federal budget for at least a month. We are going to be gone from this building before the federal budget's finalized. So for us to make a permanent tax cut in the middle of that is dangerous without a real plan. So yeah, I'm concerned about it. And seeing the list of people, I think it's interesting to make a pledge about something when you don't know the whole picture. And that's, to me, been my big concern about tax cuts. If you're only talking about making promises to the public with no real decision making about what problems are we solving, I have real problems with that.
You tweeted earlier this week about the latest parental choice tax credit.
Yeah.
Report. And it showed less than 10% of the students were coming from public to private, and I think it was 40% of the money was going to households 150,000 or more. Can you kind of expand on that?
So I think the report from the Oklahoma Tax Commission about the Parents' Choice tax credit was real clear. Number one, about how the vouchers were sold, which they were sold as being a way to help public school kids who were in bad public schools get into private school. Clearly that's not the case, since 92% of the people using them are already in private schools. But the other big issue is about accountability for the money. So when we talk about public school funding, we account for every dollar. If there's fraud, if there's abuse, we find it because we have so many checks and balances. And what we're talking about now is all this money going out, and we see that it's going to folks well above Oklahoma's average wage. They keep using the language about low income, but actually it's $75,000 or less they're calling low income, which is our average Oklahoma wage. And so what we're talking about here is everyone, and we know that more than 50% of those folks make over $150,000. So to most Oklahomans, that's a very wealthy person. So let's be accountable for the money. Let's not talk about it in generalities. Let's be very specific. So these are problems we pointed out from the beginning, and sadly, it's proving true. You know.
How do you feel the mental health hearing went on Monday? Senators have now joined. You're now on that committee.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you got any more answers?
No. I mean, I'm gravely concerned about the mental health agency. I think we had been turning a corner on mental health, on really having access in every county, having crisis centers, having the kind of resources we need for community health when it comes to mental health. And we are at a turning point right now. That hearing was very alarming. To not know what money is in the bank, so to speak, is really disturbing. And I think I'm hearing the experts over there who are helping from other agencies, I believe, are going to get to the bottom of it, but I'm concerned that there's cuts happening now in our communities and that we have to act faster. And I'm also afraid that people are going to think, oh, well, you know, government is a mess, right? No, these are things that have been working and have been going well. We just are at a crisis point where we've got a lot of uninsured people, a lot of people coming into the system, and they're serving people who call in from 988 or who get picked up from our new crisis centers. That's a great thing. Before, we weren't catching people, and we're actually going to save money long term if we can invest up front in that preventative care.
Your thoughts on the former Attorney General Mike Hunter's lawsuit?
Yeah, that was.
Board of Education?
That lawsuit by the former Attorney General is very interesting to me. I've only read the media reports about it so far. I'm really interested to see what case he's bringing up. I mean, we had concerns about open records and open meetings for the way that the superintendent ran that school board meeting. And I wondered if anyone would try to pursue that. So it sounds like mainly what he's bringing forward are those problems with the way they ran the meeting, right? I'm looking forward to seeing that. We've had a lot of sad families calling us, worried about what their kids are going to be learning next year. I've gotten calls, families at my kids' schools. I have an 8th grader, have an 11th grader, saying, what can we do? Asking if they can opt out of the classes, which, you know, I don't think there's a provision for that. Also asking if they can opt out of the testing, because specifically they don't want their kid tested on those standards. So there's a lot of people worried about it. I think that's an interesting follow-up to have that lawsuit. We're also working on getting all the dates down for the textbook adoption process so we can find out what our district's going to have an option to buy for teaching kids.
Sure. One of the things that he pointed out during that press conference was, and it was prompted by my question, but that the legislature had the opportunity to act on it, on those standards, that they should have reviewed them and not approved them, rejected them, frankly. There was some legislation that existed for a little bit during this session to kind of change the rules up to get that done. Didn't go through. Just your thoughts on the legislature's role as this continues to be a conversation, and what it should have.
Yeah, I mean, the legislature has the power to reject the social studies standards. We did not take it. The Republicans would not take it up. Democrats ran a resolution. There was a Republican resolution that they would not bring up. they needed a majority of the Republicans to be on board with it, I believe, before they were going to bring it forward. And that, we were negligent about that duty. We did everything we could to try to get it heard and try to push that issue forward and to raise the alarm about the deadline, that the timing was tight. And a lot of people didn't realize that was the end of the conversation, that then it's going to become what's being taught next year in schools. I think hopefully we'll keep talking about it, but I'm sad that some people didn't wake up to the problem until it was over.
And just to kind of stay on that note, now the Senate legislature is moving on the administrative rules. Looks like those are about to be rejected potentially. Just on the, I guess the tit for tat, the exchange of one for the other, or maybe an effort to reconcile the what is it, the silent acquiescence is what Mike Hunter called it, of the legislature. Just your thoughts on that. So
do you think that they're rejecting the administrative rules because they didn't reject the social studies standards? Is that what you're asking?
It appears that way on the face to me.
Yeah.
Just
I would love that. Here, I hope that Senate and House Democrats and the public holding people more accountable is pushing them to do the right thing. I think it's also helping how many people view that rule about immigration status as immoral. I've heard from religious leaders that they view that as immoral. So I think it's got multiple layers, so it's probably not just social studies standards, but I hope it is taking the accountability we have. We don't have a lot of steps we're allowed to take, but when we can take them to rein in what Superintendent Walters is doing that's over his authority, we need to do it.
Kind of following up on Lionel's question, how confident are you, given what happened last year, that they'll actually get a hearing in the Senate?
That's a great question. Well, the Pro Tem did say publicly and privately that he will hear that Senate Joint Resolution 22. So I don't think, I've always found him to be an honest guy. So I think that'll happen. Now, do I know it'll pass the Senate? No, I don't know that. And do I know it'll pass the House? No, I'm not sure of that. So I think there's a lot of steps to go to know that those rules are rejected. And of course, the governor can reverse it all. So I think if people care about this issue, they better be engaged now in advocating in the Senate, House, and with the governor, because it's not going to change unless they take action.
To go back to the mental health thing, there's a whole back and forth for the past week, probably more. But do you know where they got the money to make payroll? Because I know that was a concern for a bit. Do you know that situation?
No, I didn't get any of the details on the accounts and stuff. Anything else y'all want to hit on? Those are the big issues? All right, appreciate y'all.